Hi, I'm Steve Saylor. I'm blind, and if you're wondering how I'm able to play video games if I'm blind, if you take a look at the video here, you can see exactly what I see when I'm playing video games. Today's video is a little bit different. It's a little bit more kind of off the cuff, as close to a one take as I can, and I'm not going to be talking about impressions about a particular game or any accessibility news about anything in particular. This is just something that I've been sort of ruminating about in my head, and I've talked a little bit about it on Twitter, but I've never really had a chance to sort of sit down and just kind of discuss in detail my thoughts on this, even on my YouTube channel. So I apologize ahead of time if I ramble, if I get on tangents. This is just sort of not necessarily a vent or a rant, but this is just an open discussion about basically what you already saw in the title of this video in regards to marketing and accessibility. And I don't know 100% what the title is going to be as of this recording, so it may be different. I don't know. To give extra context to this, I would definitely recommend you check out two articles on candid.com by Ben Bayless and Christy Smith. They go in a lot more detail about marketing, accessibility, and how even capitalism can help marketing accessibility in games. There are two articles that I definitely recommend checking out. They'll be in the YouTube description down below, and they do a much better job at explaining this probably better than I can. This is just to give you more extra information to add to this conversation. So this is kind of, even though I say as well, this is kind of like an open letter to developers and marketers. I feel like this is a letter that could be for the general gaming public, because the more people talk about this, then the more marketers and developers and studios will see that this information is needed, and hopefully will make a concerted effort to put this information out there. I was going to talk about two specific things in regards to marketing and accessibility. One of which was to be able to make your marketing materials accessible, but that's a whole other different topic. That also there's an article about it on candid.com. I'll link to that as well. Now I think about it, how to be able to make your marketing materials more accessible. But that's a whole other thing that I feel like is desperately needed, because we're getting a lot of information or a lot of marketing materials that are not accessible to deaf and hard hearing, and also not accessible to blind players. So, but I may get into that in a separate video. Today I'm talking about at least marketing accessibility info in regards to any game when it comes to AAA or even down to indie. To start from the beginning, we get a lot of information about a game well in advance before it comes out. It's to help promote it and generate a lot of attention, a lot of hype around a game. So I get it, but we get a lot of material that is generally to try to be able to get you to want to be able to buy this game, to generate as much excitement and as much hype as possible to purchase their game. We get teaser trailers, gameplay demos, gameplay reveals, developer interviews, reviews, preview events. We get so many marketing. We get so much marketing towards a game well in advance before the game's release. And yet, we get almost nothing for accessibility, or what even accessibility options are in a game. You know what the average in timeline to when accessibility info is put out? Average 2 weeks before launch. We get months, sometimes years of hearing about a particular game, and yet we get maybe 2 weeks to find out whether or not a game that we've been in the disabled community have been excited for, have been wanting for years, and we have to wait 2 weeks before the game comes out, whether or not we can actually play it And oftentimes, even then, there may not be any info post-launch about accessibility. And then it's relied upon by accessibility advocates and sites like Can I Play That, like myself, that we have to purchase a game or get a review copy if we can and look at the accessibility options and hopefully put that information out there during the review embargo date when all the gaming sites are talking about and reviewing about a game. We want to be able to have that information out there as well so that you can be able to make that purchasing choice. But we rarely get any information from the studios about it, about any accessibility options. We've seen a few. I'm not saying that there's no one. Ubisoft has done a really good conceded effort to make sure that, or concerted effort, not conceded effort, to put that information out there for their games, including making their marketing materials accessible. We've seen a little bit of that from Square Enix. We've seen that from Naughty Dog, but even in the Last of Us 2 case from Naughty Dog, we've seen and heard about so many of the great, amazing accessibility options, the most accessible game ever, but we didn't know about any of that information until 2 weeks before the game came out. I knew about it because I helped consult on it, so I knew what was there, but I couldn't talk about it. I'm not saying it's not my responsibility to either, but even then, most accessible game ever, didn't have any information about any of the accessibility settings until 2 weeks before the game came out. And that needs to change. When you have all this marketing material, and marketing campaigns to build up these amazing games that we want to play, and then accessibility either gets kind of brushed to the side or at minimum a blog post on their website, that to me is a major disconnect. And it doesn't really show a lot of faith and trust that a studio cares about accessibility. And I get it too, from the development side. Accessibility options is really difficult to be able to add in during the development process unless it's sort of established from the very beginning. There's a lot and a lot of times accessibility options change midway through development, and you don't want to talk about that beforehand, because if you put out there that there's going to be this accessibility option and a player loves that accessibility option, and then all of a sudden the developer removes that accessibility option, and now the player is upset because you said that this was going to be in there and now it's not. I get the fear that kind of comes up, and you're going to get a lot of negative attention regards to that. But players are pretty smart, and we notice these even minute changes in games from years ago, like Cyberpunk as an example. We've seen gameplay of that change over time, and yet you don't really hear about people complain, oh well, this is not what the game looked like in 2018 as compared to 2020. So with that in mind, I understand the difficulty of wanting to be able to talk about accessibility. But when you have a game, let's use Cyberpunk as the example. When you have a game that has been talked about for 8 years, and we've had large amount of info from gameplay demos at almost every E3 since 2018, and we even know about the fact that you can customize genitalia in the game, and yet you know how much accessibility option we've been given? One tweet, literally just last night, about the fact you can change the color and the text size of subtitles. Something that we've kind of complained about for years, and yet we've had one tweet confirming that that's an option. One little short tweet out of years of promoting this game, hyping this game up so that players can be able to play. We have one tweet. That needs to change. That, and I'm not calling Cyberpunk out or CD Projekt Red out for this specifically. I'm just using it as an example. We need more information about accessibility, because this is not just a marketing gimmick. This is not a way to be able to try to get favor from the disability community. This is information that we as disabled players need to know so that we can be able to play this game. Oftentimes, because there's no information about games being released, we have to purchase the game kind of completely unaware of what's in there. We spend hard-earned $60 plus, depending on which country you're in, to be able to buy a game. We take it home, we play it, or we download it and we play it, and within 2 hours, we find out we can't play this. And then we can't even return it because the return policies, the refund policies are so outdated that we don't even get our money back. And that's why I always often promote Game Pass, because then at least with the games that come out on Game Pass, day one of the game's release, at least the price range of it, $15 a month, is enough that you can just download the game. If it doesn't work for you, you can delete it and try something else. Sure, we're disappointed we can't be able to play a game that we were excited for, but you know what? It's not a huge amount of money wasted because of it. And even then, it sort of brings back the idea of the demos, which we sorely have missed over the past few years that I wish more developers would do. And Game Pass kind of solves that problem to a degree. But instead of giving you demos, it gives you full games, which is great. But you're really missing out on a huge marketing opportunity by not talking about accessibility and what options are available. Because if we see, as disabled players, I've said this before, if I see one option that feels like it was made because of me, made because of like this, it was made for me, I will shout about that game from the mountaintops. I will highly praise this game, even though it may not be 100% accessible to all players. I'll be able to play this game because it has one option. And there is a large audience that is being missed out, and large potential sales opportunities because of just one accessibility option. Like I said before, with Last of Us 2, I've heard from players that have purchased PS4s because of the accessibility options in The Last of Us. That's a lot of money for just one game. Imagine what it'd be like if all games had this information beforehand. We would see a lot more sales. We'd see a huge increase in sales for these games. So that's kind of, I like, in conclusion, I kind of like to be able to put out there that to marketers, to developers, and even players, please demand more information about accessibility way before the game comes out. What are my recommendations? Bare minimum, when the game goes gold. Because then at that point, there are options that are already locked in. The settings are already there, minus a few bug fixes and tweaks and maybe a few tiny features here and there that'll be in the day one patch or in future patches. But you already have a base amount of options that are there. And a lot of times games go gold at least minimum a month before the game comes out. That should be the time when accessibility info comes out, at least at the bare minimum. Because then at least it gives us, okay, all right, it has these options. I could be able to play this. Then it gives us time to be able to at least save up money to be able to buy it. Or pre-order it and get excited for it and get hyped about it and talk about it. That's what you want. So, in conclusion, twice, that's what I would recommend to developers and marketers. Please give us more information, and not just before launch. We would love to be able to know and be included in the conversation, because we want to play the same games that our friends are playing. And if we don't even know if we can be able to play it until the game comes out, that just takes us out of the conversation completely.